You know, it's rare that I'm this surprised. I've been surprised many times while I was taking apart this little mini PC. This is the Geekom Air 12, and we're going to do a full teardown. I'm going to talk about the build quality quite a bit, but the first thing I want to do is just talk about what you can do with this. That was my first surprise. You know, I saw the price point and I'm like, okay, that's a very low price point. It probably won't be able to do much. And that's when I realized that even though it's all efficiency cores, which means it barely uses any power, it still has 16 gigabytes of RAM, and you can still do a lot with it, including playing games. So it's got a 12th generation Intel Alder Lake. It's an N150 processor, which is like one of the faster all efficiency core processors. We also have single channel memory. It's DDR5, 4800 megatransfers, and we have a generous 16 gigabytes of that. If you're not sure exactly what the RAM does in your system, I'll give you a quick analogy. Imagine the computer was like a virtual desk. The more RAM you have, the more stuff you can have on your desk at the same time without it getting all messed up and everything. If you have a tiny desk and you try to do 5 or 6 different things, it's not going to work. It's going to be a mess and it's going to be slow. 16 gigabytes of RAM gives you a bigger desk so that you can multitask. You can use the internet and Office at the same time. You can edit a video while doing something else. You can watch a video while doing other things. So you can multitask on this. Next up, we have a 512 gigabyte M.2, and we have very respectable PCI Express Gen 3 by 4 speed, and you can see the right there, 2285. This is going to make things feel snappy. It's not always just the CPU, it's how fast things happen on the hard drive, how fast things move around, how fast the hard drive is accessed. So let's also check out the ins and outs per second right here. A lot of IOPS. As far as the temperatures go, never got above 58, so nice and cool all the way around. We have Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2. It's got Windows 11 Pro, not the home version, the Pro version pre-installed, which is great for like networking and stuff and remote desktop. All that can be, enabled and used on this. Makes it really nice for offices as well. On the front, we have Type-C. We have USB 3.2 Gen 2, that's Type A. Then we have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, that's a combo headphone and microphone port. Then we have our power button. Flip it around to the side, we have a convenient SD card reader. Then on the back, we have our DC input. We have our mini DisplayPort 1.4. Beside that is our Ethernet port. Then we have 2 more of those USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports. Then we have an HDMI 2.0, and above that is a Type-C connector that also works as DisplayPort 1.4, giving us 3 displays in total. Both of the display ports will support 8K at 30 Hz, and the HDMI 2.0 will support 4K at 60 Hz. So these things are quote unquote, they say built to last on their website, proven by 339 plus tests. I'm going to show you what the inside of this looks like in just a second, but after Intel stopped making them, I feel like Geekom is the company that really stepped in, and I think they even went a step farther than Intel when it comes to the quality of the components, and they have hired many different figures from many different big companies to work here. All right, so let's open this up. The first thing you're going to notice is it's really easy to open this up. You just flip it around and you don't need any tools. I like to use a screwdriver, but you can just use your hands if you want to, because the feet on the bottom are also the screws that you unscrew to remove the bottom plate. One of the things that's really cool is the external feet. The screws on those pretty long, and then when you look at the motherboard on the inside, there are 2 screws there that hold that down, and then the 4 screws from the feet go all the way through and hold the motherboard in place as well. So we actually have 6 points where the motherboard is held in place securely by the 4 screws on the outside, as well as 2 additional screws on the inside. Now, a lot of the cases that you'll see out there just use regular screws and it unscrews the normal way. When you take the bottom off of that one, you're going to notice that everything on the inside is plastic and there's no shell. Most of the other brands that I've seen, in fact, I opened up a couple here in the studio, and they're just the standard ABS plastic, no internal rigidity. So if you just got it sitting in one place, it's really not that big of a deal, but I'm moving these things around all the time because they're so little and portable, and you can just take them wherever you want to. If that plastic hits the ground incorrectly, it can damage the internal components very easily. And when you first look at the Geekom, you're going to notice it's a really clean layout, but around the sides, that is a full metal internal shell. It's really, really rigid. I tried to bend it. It's going to require a lot of force. I wasn't messing around. I was really trying to bend this internal metal shell. It's sturdy. That metal shell on the inside can withstand up to 200 kilograms of pressure. That means that some Americans can use these as shoes. I wouldn't do that, but it'll probably still work if you were to use them as shoes anyway. Also, when you're taking these apart, you'll notice that there's a difference when it comes to the antennas. Now, the Geekom, they use a 3D stereoscopic antenna, so this will give you full 360-degree coverage, and it's very good when it comes to interference. On some of the other brands, we generally just see a standard FPC flexible antenna. They're not as good when it comes to anti-interference, and they generally have limited high frequency capabilities. So the Geekoms in general are going to have a smoother experience when it comes to using the Wi-Fi 6. Next thing I noticed was the Geekom fans are larger, even on this low price unit that's very low power. We got a full on copper heatsink with a big large heat pipe right there and a bigger fan. Now the bigger fans also generate a more pleasant noise in my opinion. So this is really, really quiet, but at the same time, it stays cooler than I expected. I mean, I expected it to be cool, but in the tests, it was even cooler than expected. Check that out. The temperature never went above 62. Right now it's at 59. I've been doing a full-on stress test for an hour and 11 minutes. So this is low power, and that means it's also going to be low temperature and low noise. So this is just the room right now. I'm in a room with a bunch of other computers. So you do have some background sounds going on in this room. Let's go ahead and put this right next to the machine and just see how loud it is. It's so quiet that even a couple inches away from the machine, it's not really raising the decibel level at all. So just expect cool performance and also completely silent performance for the most part. All right, next up, we got to talk about these capacitors because all over the motherboard, I'm seeing some really large capacitors, and these are all made out of tantalum. So why use tantalum capacitors? You know, they can't get as hot as the ceramic ones, but they're much better when it comes to just being stable. And that's kind of the trend I'm seeing with all the components that they've chosen for the Geekom stuff is they want stability. They don't want to be affected by any kind of like electrostatic discharge or anything like that. And tantalum capacitors can help with all of these things. So they're very stable. They have very low internal resistance, and they can filter out high frequencies much better than regular capacitors. Now, the size means that they can just hold more. So if you look at the Geekom, so the CPU power, those are all 330 microfarad, nice and big. And then the system power is 150 microfarad. When you look at the competition, it's 47 microfarads. Their capacitors can't hold nearly as much power. The bigger capacitors means they can hold more power, which means things will stay stable. And that also means as the CPU ramps up and down, the spikes are not going to matter. It's going to, have smooth power the entire time. Now, why would you care about this? What does that matter? Can't the capacitor just ramp up and down? Well, this is something that can sometimes cause blue screens. If you have, something that happens in your computer that causes the CPU to spike with a really large tantalum capacitor like we have here in the Geekom, that's nothing. That's like, okay, cool. I got the power right here. What do you want? It's fine. And it's going to be stable. It's ready to go. If you have a smaller capacitor that's not the same quality, that little spike can give you a blue screen. And then the other thing about having these large capacitors is that basically everything that works with them is going to have a longer life. Have you ever plugged something into USB and then sometimes it'll lose power, especially if it's like something like a webcam, or sometimes my audio interface on my main system just doesn't get enough power for like a millisecond, and I have to like go and unplug the USB and plug it back in, and then it works. Geekom has done something to make sure that that doesn't happen. They've included a 150 microfarad tantalum capacitor right beside all of the USB ports. So that just ensures that you have stable and even power all the time ready for your USB ports. So you're not going to have to worry about that kind of stuff. And it also is going to help if there's some interference from the outside world. It'll help to stop that from bothering your system. And they sent me a test. I can't do this at home, but they sent me an electrostatic discharge test on their computer. And they say a rival product. It's the one I'm messing around with here. I got my hands on the same one. And you can see what happens there. It doesn't affect the Geekom, but it shut down the rival product. So they do a lot of testing on these. It's kind of over the top, but yeah. Like I was telling you, they do 339 tests on all their products. I still think that's a little over the top, but I'll take it. Why not? They've also given us a 3-year warranty on all these. And then you get all this for a similar price when you compare that to the other stuff. So now we're going to hop in and just do some tests, use the computer, and I'll show you all the stuff that you can do with this. You can absolutely play games on this depending on what you play, and this is actually a beautiful game that I recently played through. It's called Planet of Lana, and it's very similar to games like Inside, or if you want to go really old school, it's very similar to games like Another World or Out of This World, depending on which one of those you played. The world is really beautiful. The gameplay is a ton of fun. It's slightly challenging, but not too bad. Anyway, this game is running beautifully on this system. Every now and then when the world gets huge, there's a little bit of slowdown, but you don't have to worry too much about slowdown in a game like this because it's not an action game. Look at this. Beautiful. I actually can't believe how well this is running on this system. So yeah, highly recommended Planet of Lana. Is Deja Vu playing in your head right now? Because it should be. You're looking at Slipstream, and if you like racing games, especially retro style racing games like the old Sega Namco games, Outrun and all those kind of games, well then this is something you need to be checking out. Also, it's made by someone from our community, so be sure to say hello to them. Let them know over on Steam or wherever you grab it that you heard about it here. So yeah, Slipstream, ton of fun. Highly recommended if you want a racing game that's something you can kick back and have fun and drift. left around a bunch of corners. Let's beat this guy. Oh no! All right, let's try some PlayStation 2 because I think that's probably about the top limit when it comes to emulation. So we're trying out an obscure Capcom horror game called Haunting Ground. And I'm running this at 2x with some custom textures. So I've got some HD textures going on here and it's working perfectly. So this is Haunting Ground, which is a weird Capcom horror game. I recommend it. It's fun. Doesn't have the tank controls that some people love, but you know, that's a bonus for some, depending on what you're doing. Warning, this game's weird. So they told me it could play up to PS2, but I decided to also try the GameCube because I'm crazy. And yeah, Zelda Wind Waker is working pretty well. It's actually working, actually working really well. Ignore all that nonsense on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. I was scanning something and it got stuck and I don't feel like restarting because this game takes forever. There may be a little bit of slowdown here and there, but it feels about like the console. So yeah, I cannot argue with this. So you can play your GameCube on this, some games. You have to change a few of the settings, but it's working all right. All right, so let's see how 4K editing works here in Premiere 2025. I've got a fade coming up right here. We'll see how that runs. There we go, there's the fade. I can scrub around. Okay, this is 4 efficiency cores, but I mean, I think you can get by unless you're doing some crazy After Effects stuff. You can edit just fine right now. We do have hardware encoding. So this did recognize the Intel right there. And if we just go up here and go to edit, down to preferences, and then look at our media preferences right here, you can see that we do have the H.264 HEVC hardware acceleration decoding, and it has recognized the available Intel hardware. So that's giving us a bit of a boost right here. Look at that. Yes, it's wonderful. It's fun. Office works just fine. There we go. I don't have it activated because I'm not going to use it much on this machine. I'm just trying out some templates right here. You can do a few things at the same time. I've just got this generic template up over here. Give me this screenshot right here. Copy that. Paste it right over here. There we go. Yeah, there, nice. So this is, you know, plenty snappy enough to do office work and whatnot because we do have the 16 gigabytes of RAM. That's a big deal when it comes to multitasking and doing things like this. Cool. So yeah, you can do stuff like this, no problem. Actually, this feels snappier than I expected it to feel. Not bad for only a few watts, I guess. All right, let's take a look at our CPU benchmarks. Now, remember, this is all efficiency cores, so it's not made for doing rendering, but I figured I'd do Cinebench anyway, just so you can compare it to whatever you have at home. Talk about what's for your needs. The single core, 549, and then the multi-core score is 2497. And you can see where it, and then we're gonna hop into Geekbench, run the CPU benchmark and also the integrated GPU benchmark. For the CPU, we got a single core score of 1212 and the multi-core score of 3145. I'm gonna scroll down and just let you look at all the different scores there for HTML browsing, photo filters, whatever, navigation. And then we'll check the OpenCL score right here, 4336, and here are all the individual scores. So I went really deep into this. I mean, they did sponsor this video, but I wouldn't have taken a dime if all of this stuff wasn't true. They just really, I think they just do a lot of this stuff and they're like, we want to show everybody what we do because a lot of people grab this and it works just fine. And they never even think about all of this stuff. They don't think about the 339 test. They don't think about the fact that it has the internal metal, structure. They don't think about any of that stuff. They don't think about the giant capacitors. I mean, when's the last time you plugged something in and thought, I'm glad I got those giant capacitors? No, you didn't think that. You thought, hey, this works. And that's all you really should be thinking about. But now when you're out there looking around, there's so many different brands and there's a million different brand names and stuff you've never even heard of. Especially nowadays, there's a billion different brands that are always showing up. And so I've kind of defaulted back to Geekom when it comes to just straight up mini PCs because I know the quality is going to be there. They haven't failed me. I sent my dad one. He's using it right now to do music creation. He kind of plays jazz. Did you know it ran in the family? So he's got one just using the Geekom A7 just for his jazz and stuff. And I sent him that one because I knew that, you know, if he's messing around with it, putting it on the back of his keyboard, his piano keyboard, and it falls over, it'll be fine. So if you're looking for something for like media consumption, light gaming, light work, doing some editing, your office stuff, this PC is perfect for that. If you want a little bit more performance, if you want to do something a little bit nerdy or maybe do 3D design, more encoding or whatever, heavier duty workloads when it comes to editing. And if you want to play some like fancier games, take a look at the A7 or the A6. Those are going to give you a little bit more horsepower, better graphics card for fancier games and that sort of thing. So now I want to know what you think. Is this crazy or is this what you kind of wish you could see from everybody out there? So let me know what you think. I'll put links to all this stuff down in the description and I'll see you next time.